I'll second it.
So we need to do reorganization. Oh, yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We need to reorganize, so we have to elect a chairman. Anybody want to volunteer or do we need Gary?
I'll nominate Gary.
Gary, you're nominated. I second it. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And for secretary?
You should technically do it vice chair, it doesn't have a big.
Okay. All right, then we'll do vice chair. Okay, secretary. All right, so anybody would like to volunteer to be secretary?
I'll nominate Erin.
I'll second. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right. So anybody in the audience want to say anything about what's on our agenda? Anybody have any comments?
Can we stand up or?
Sure.
Sally Choclo, 5 Scarlet Circle, Brook.
I'm sorry, he said it.
5 Scarlet Circle.
Thank you.
Just a comment on the short-term rentals. One is appreciate you guys jumping on that and moving it forward and getting that done, so thank you. And then I had a couple items just for consideration. One, possibly adding landline, having a landline in there for emergency use.
Yeah.
Fire extinguisher, at least one in the kitchen, with the yearly inspection.
Wasn't that already covered?
Should we talk about that?
Right, that should be covered.
If I missed it, I'm sorry. I see
No,
fire
I
smoke
think-
detectors and stuff. but-
Right, I think the intention for the inspection program would be for it to fall under the property maintenance code. I'll double check that that is specifically in the property maintenance code, that they would inspect to. If it's not, we will add a provision for a fire extinguisher in the kitchen.
And I don't know if it's overkill, but maybe some type of fire plan or emergency.
Emergency access plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nobody else? All right, so the first item is zoning hearing board conditional use application, which is conditional use for Junta Enterprises.
Good evening. My name is Chris Daly with Howe Engineering, and I'm here with Ron Thompson, who's the architect on this project. This is a 3845 Horseshoe Pike. The applicant is Junta Enterprises. We submitted a conditional use application to propose a planned mixed residential development in the mixed-use commercial district. The property is mostly undeveloped, consists of 2 buildings. There's a residence on the left side, shown in white on this rendering, and then a commercial building on the east side here, which is occupied by Kosh Pets Pet Burger right now. This application proposes to keep both uses and also plans on proposing 6 additional single-family residential dwellings. Pretty straightforward application. We're proposing, 24-foot wide roadway for access to those buildings. We're also providing additional parking spaces for the commercial use. As part of the conditional use application, we're required to have up to 30% of commercial area. We're providing up to 12%, so we're actually well below that. We received a review letter from the township engineer, went through it, no have any issues complying with those comments. Happy to answer any questions that you have. And Zach actually also has some renderings of what those houses are going to look like.
I have a question for you.
Susan, hold 1 second, Gary just asked if, I guess the video for us isn't on, so give me a second.
Thank you.
Gary, is that better? Okay, sorry about that.
Okay, so the building where Posh Pets now is now, that's going to stay.
That will stay, there are no improvements proposed.
Okay, and then it looks like there's a parking area right behind that, and then there's another, right now, empty space, but it's labeled commercial area. Is the expectation of having another commercial building back there?
No.
The 3 spots behind the residence, is that for the house? Is that the parking for the house? Like,
So-
it's the existing, there's an existing house in the front, right?
There's an existing house here, and
Yeah.
these 4 parking spaces are proposed for the house.
For the house, not for the commercial.
Correct. Only the parking spaces within this shaded area here are proposed for the commercial space. For the houses back here, there are 2 car garages provided for each one, and there's also enough space for the driveways in front of those garages to have 2 spots. So there's 4 spots available for each one of these houses, and then there's 4 overflow spaces provided.
Is this senior living or just anybody can live
Anyway,
here? And is there just gonna be like an HOA that's in charge of the entire tract, including the commercial area, or how's that gonna work?
the property owner is going to lease that out.
Oh, so nobody buys these are rentals? Okay.
Are there any rentals?
How does that work if the rentals in there, that each lot has its own deed, it's separately deeded, or is? So if it's a rental, is each lot separately deeded?
Oh,
No, it's just
it's
one
one
share.
parcel.
One parcel?
It's all one parcel and one person owns.
It's
Yeah,
almost
the
like
whole
an
thing.
apartment.
Is there any requirement for like recreation facilities or?
There's an open space requirement that will design up to, or at least 20% open space,
Okay.
which we do provide. Pretty much this whole green area here meets that requirement.
I think that number of houses would fall below the Saldo threshold where that starts out.
Will there be like trash, or does each person just have a trash can, or there won't be dumpsters or anything like that?
I believe it's going to be, each house will have its own trash can that will be picked up.
Now, I know what that business is there on the left, and, you know, they have a lot going, a lot of noise there. The likelihood of the neighbors complaining about the business there is,
You mean like that,
talking about
that's
West
here,
River.
complaining about
Yeah,
around here?
a lot going on there.
Yeah. It's possible, I mean, maybe during land development, we may look into providing some additional screening, kind of help mask that noise for the future tenants of these houses.
That was actually my next question, what does this go up against? Behind the
Back here,
West River.
Yeah.
I was wondering about the buffer too.
It's really tight.
Right, that would come up during the land development procedure. So just for concept and keep on track, they will have to go through the land development process. What we're discussing and for input tonight is to have a conditional use application to allow this multi-use is scheduled the same night as the February Board of Supervisors agenda. So be similar to what we do with variance and zoning hearing applications. You guys take a position on the application, and then if there's any specific conditions that you think the board should consider that are kind of above and beyond our ordinance requirements that'll come into play during land development, we'd be looking for feedback on those as well. So I understand the noise, I agree, noise and buffering, I just don't want us to get stuck there when that will come up during land development. You guys will have an opportunity during the land development process to bring all those in view of their proposals at that time.
What are they looking for us to do?
Ultimately, have an introduction to the project and then your feedback to the Board of Supervisors, similar to what we do for variances, position of support against or no position on the conditional use application. And, if there's any specific conditions that you think should be kind of required for this use, present those as part of your motion and comments that will be forwarded to the board. So they gave an introduction. You do in your packets have a copy of Mike's review letter on the conditional use application. A lot of what's mentioned in here are items that will come up during the land development process. As Chris mentioned, they didn't see any major triggers or hindrances with this, feel that they can comply with those. So one of Mike's comments was whether that existing commercial use is being continued or a new one. They did answer that it's being continued in its current condition. The sidewalk pedestrian connection along 322, screening and buffering will come up during land development. The proposed parking, he wants to verify, are those spaces, one of his comments was there enough parking for the commercial use since the use was undetermined? Based upon the square footage, are those, looks like you have, 12 spaces back there for that existing commercial use?
Yeah, 14 spaces back there.
If the building's only 1250, I would assume that meets parking requirements, but I would just add that to your plan and verify that prior to the conditional use hearing.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about it, but that's what we're gonna do before the hearing.
Yeah. Just if it comes up, then you have a definitive answer. They'll have to do stormwater management, they'll have to update a PennDOT permit for the access through there. As I said, there has to be permanently restricted common open space. And if it qualifies, meets the standards for a traffic study. So those were the highlights of Mike's comments.
Can you turn it so they can see it?
Sorry. Yeah. So, does the planning commission have any other questions, either from what was presented to you or Mike's review letter?
I have another question. That roadway within, between the homes, is that going to be privately maintained, or is that going to come to the township?
Or we probably.
Is 4 overflow spaces sufficient for 6? Since they have driveways and garage? So they don't need any?
Well, really, they're single family. I would have to look for if there's different parking requirements for the multi-use, but a single family dwelling is just 2. That higher threshold gets in when it's townhomes and things like that. They do kind of have quite a bit of driveway space in there, then they just need to coordinate with their neighbors if they're having a lot of people on. Anything else? Ron, did you have anything you wanted to add before I?
I think it pretty much speaks for itself right now.
Okay, I didn't want you to not have an opportunity. So if the planning commission doesn't have any other questions or comments, like I said, similar to the zoning hearing application, be looking for a position of support against or no position, and that goes up to the Board of Supervisors for their consideration during the actual conditional use hearing, which will be before them at their February planning commission meeting, at their February board meeting. Sal, do you know if that's starting half an hour early?
I believe so.
She probably has it in here. So, okay.
Well, I'll make a motion to support.
I'll second it.
Any opposed?
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Next thing on the agenda is short-term rentals.
Okay, so I updated the ordinance, based upon the last few comments that we had at our last meeting and incorporated, Beth Cole's as solicitor, a couple comments. I then ran the thing back through Beth, make sure I interpreted her comments right. So she's good with it as it stands. I did write down Sal's comments. The planning commission can indicate, I think I saw nodding agreement when they mentioned, but adding specifics to have a landline in the house for emergency purposes, ensure there's a fire extinguisher in the kitchen, and that they provide like an emergency access plan.
No, is this gonna be like a yearly, they're gonna have to renew their rental agreement or whatever with
Yes.
the township once a year? Is the township then gonna go in once a year and inspect, like,
I think
That's what I did
yes,
for bed and
we put
breakfast.
in,
and we require, like, the fire marshal will go with me, we make sure the smoke alarms work, we make sure the extinguisher hasn't expired, it's in the right
right,
place.
so we put in that there would be annual inspections and they must comply with the latest version of the property maintenance code adopted by the township. That's what we use in other municipalities in the boroughs for their like rental programs. And that does cover, things like make sure your access points aren't blocked with boxes, check all your smoke detectors. I'm gonna verify the fire extinguisher things in there, if not, we'll make that a separate line item. Make sure the steps aren't in disrepair, if you have a deck, you're not missing a ton of spindles, that it's generally safe.
Right.
Through there. We also put in there about the septic system being regularly pumped and inspected. I don't think that's been fully implemented here yet with the 537 plan. So I voted that it needs to be pumped and inspected per the township sewage ordinance, so it's in place when that is passed. But in the meantime, until that is implemented, then it does have to be pumped and inspected every 3 years. And we would verify that as part of the annual registration process, so.
Now, let's just say there is a family or somebody that comes in and is disturbing to the neighbors, can you pull their license or whatever for that year? Or like, what are you gonna do about enforcement of those issues?
I think we wrote,
They get a notice on the first complaint?
yeah, it's been a little while since I.
Yes, in the last section, or D on the last
Thank
page.
you. The zoning it's been a long week.
Yeah.
Zoning officer shall enforce these provisions. First violation or complaint will result in notice. Further violations or complaints may result in the revocation of the zoning permit for the short-term use. And I think how quickly it gets revoked will determine be based upon the seriousness of the issues.
The fee, that they pay, how's that gonna work? Are they gonna pay Technicon for the inspections directly, or?
That would be, it would go through the township, and the township's fee schedule, they would add line items for their rental program. So how we do it so like Moton Borough, they have a registration fee and then an inspection fee. That gets paid to the borough, they collect X amount of dollars, and then we bill T&M what the inspections are. So we would help the township with setting those
Yeah,
permit
'cause we
fees
don't
to
want
make
the
sure.
inspections to cost more than.
Right, so
you know.
we work with it to, work with them to set those fees of, what the average time to inspect would be, and then there is usually a re-inspection charge listed that if we go out, the inspector think you fail, you're gonna get charged a second, inspection fee, so.
So once if this is adopted, then
Mhm.
you'll update the fee schedule?
Yes, so if we adopt this, look at the fee schedule, I know they would look just in terms of timing, I know they were looking at, Beth has a list of some minor zoning amendments, just kind of clean up things that have arisen since it was adopted. And when we're doing reviews of things that just aren't super clear, or a typo or something we found, I think she may be putting those into ordinance form. Because when you adopt zoning ordinance amendments, they have to get reviewed by the county planning commission. It'll come back to you guys. So, and then full advertisement and hearing and everything. So it kind of makes sense to do it all at once. So I know Warren did authorize her to put those together in amendment form, and this will be lumped in. But we wanted to get this all finalized with you guys. And like I said, the other zoning changes, it's nothing like fully changing the regulation.
So they will have a book for the length of stay for each person.
Yeah, they're supposed to track who's been there and when.
You said you wanted to
Yeah, that's what I'm getting.
Yeah, that's kind of what defines the short-term rental.
I'd like to reiterate what I said last time too about the age limit. I'm concerned whether or not it doesn't violate the Fair Housing Act, where you can't discriminate for age. And I know a lot of businesses, you can't rent a car, you said, if you're under 25 or less, or that's a business actually implementing a law or rule. Not an actual government office that's implementing a rule, saying at 18 years old, you can sign a contract. And it does say in the Fair Housing Act, that, you can't discriminate due to age.
But this is a business.
It's not housing.
But this is a government. It is housing. You could have use for hotels,
And you gotta be 25 to.
Right.
but that's implemented by the business themselves, not by the government.
I'll verify with Beth that concern, just to make sure, we aren't doing something we can't with the age
By
restriction.
that town, they're named by sheriff. No, yeah, I mean, that because the Fair Housing Act says you cannot discriminate for age.
But it's not housing, it's a rental.
But it's considered housing, it's still housing, but it's an act of what you're doing.
But you're not living there. You're not living there.
But, I mean, if you have extended stay hotels, people are living there, it's still a hotel.
No,
It
they're
is a
not
housing.
living there. That's not their permanent address. They're leasing the space for whatever period of time.
So your student house here, what is there?
Well, like I said, I'll run it by the solicitor specifically, just to make sure we're covered and we're not putting in something that she thinks we can't. All right, so, anything else, or we think short-term rental ordinance is good, or just these couple minor items? think we need an official motion because ultimately this, with those other things, will come back to you as part of the zoning ordinance amendment adoption process. Gary, did you have anything? I don't want to forget about you over there.
Like he's,
Or he disappeared.
there, Gary?
I don't know, yeah.
Can you try that again?
I'm good.
Thanks. All right.
Just going back to Sal's comment about the fire extinguishers, I was kind of surprised when he brought that up, because we'd spent so much time talking about safety things, but I've been reading this, and I don't see any specific mention of fire extinguishers, which still surprises me. But I'm also wondering, I don't see, I mean, it talks about, you know, having this plan, but it doesn't say like how many smoke detectors or carbon monoxide detectors need to be in there. Do we need to be specific about that? Or the number of fire extinguishers?
I think it did say something about fire extinguisher or smoke detectors being at least one on each floor or something like that.
Yeah, under permits, Susan, go under B2D. Says location of all smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, which must be in each bedroom and in the immediate vicinity outside the bedrooms. So it's part of that plan of the structure that they have to show
It still
us.
didn't say anything about fire extinguishers.
Right, so that I will add in, from Sal's comment. And then the landline telephone, and then clearly about having, we talk about all floors shall have a fire escape, direct means of access, but we'll put in that they need to provide, where owner must post the following information. We'll put in there, about an escape plan, emergency or fire escape plan in there. Okay.
Just one more thing about the escape plan.
Yeah.
If there's a, say, a finished basement, what's the plan for that?
They have to have an egress, if there's a bedroom there. That's a building code.
Or what if it's not a bedroom, it's just, say, a room for, whatever people use finished basements for. Yeah.
Right.
If it's not sleeping, if it's sleeping, an egress is required.
Because when my development was built, people who were having a finished basement, depending on how their lot was lined up, they either had to have what the bills are called daylight windows, which were enormous windows, or they had to have a Velcro door. But that isn't necessarily going to be, depending on the house.
I'll, in part of that,
That would be interesting if they would be, they'd be game room, there'd be farm, and the only way would be.
We're worried about sleeping.
Right.
yeah, I'll talk to our building code guys and just see if there's any requirement to put in, but I'm not sure if there's anything under the building code that would fall under. And I'll check property maintenance too, for those. I think so. I mean, there's nothing else on the short-term rentals in its other form on any other matter.
I have a question. Have we heard anything about where we're gonna start the comp plan?
I haven't heard anything. Sal, have you heard anything yet?
Is there something that has to happen before that begins?
Just approvals and schedules, and I think it wasn't too long ago that we actually got the grant approval, because we hooked up with Honeybrook Power and stuff.
So we're doing the joint plans, right?
It's my understanding, yeah.
I'm sorry?
That's my understanding, yeah.
Is Brandywine Conservancy involved in it, or is this
I
just?
believe they are.
I think so, but it's different people.
Oh, yeah, I was
Yeah.
what you heard.
Yeah, no, I think it's Grant DaCosta, if I remember hearing names right, and then some other people.
That's supposed to happen this year, right?
Yeah, 2020, I was, Melissa said, I think the other one was 2015, so 10 years would be 2025. Any other public comments? Yeah.
Can I just make a suggestion that when you're doing the development, that along the roads where the wires are, can you like place the trees back further instead of like underneath the wires? Because when those trees mature up, they get hacked. And I had 3 beautiful maple trees that were hacked up because they had to get in to keep the lines going through. This way, you know, they still have the trees, and they won't be chopped up and destroyed.
Yeah, I'll check what the current regulations are and make sure there's one from, I know there's regulations from underground lines. I think there is from power lines, but I'll make sure that we do have something and it's reasonable. Okay.
So Jan, how does this work if somebody wants to Airbnb one room in their house? Is that something to be allowed or is it not? That's not allowed?
No, we had said, and through all of our discussions, we were doing just entire spaces. We weren't getting into allow short-term rentals of little rooms and stuff. It's, I think overall it gets burdensome to regulate and manage. I think so. Nobody else has anything.
I do.
Okay.
For your rental, it's gonna be, I guess, year round? Right? For your
No.
rental, there,
For the Airbnb?
yeah, the Airbnb
It's
is
just-
gonna be year round?
These are just for short-term rentals, so for
Yeah.
people that rent theirs out like an Airbnb, so they
Right.
are eligible to rent it out all year round. Their
Right.
rental period can't be more than like 30 days.
No, I was just wondering, depending on what type of heat they have, my brother had a problem out in Montana.
Uh-huh.
He had propane heat, and it exploded on him. Now, the propane people down here in Maxwell said that he should have had a propane leak detector. Is that something that, depending on what kind of heat you have, depending on what kind of detectors you have to have in that house? I never knew that they had them.
Yeah, campers all have them, I know that.
Hmm?
Campers all have them.
Yeah, well, he said that you should be able to have that if you do have propane, a water heater and or a furnace.
You probably should.
And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. I never knew they had that.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's natural gas detectors then too.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they are too,
They
yeah.
probably work all the same.
Yeah, just for safety's sake.
Yeah, I'll talk to our building guys and see if they recommend, like if there's things like that for each type.
And they are available, we checked them out, they're like on Amazon and stuff. But I never even knew that. The propane guy, Maxwell's, told my brother, that, oh yeah, you should have had one. Oh,
I think
never
it would
even
be
knew
like
that.
a standard thing that the propane and companies put in as like part of their thing, but.
So that's in the house, not out at the tank, is what you're saying? Like, you're talking about something that's in the house?
I think it's almost like a smoke detector, but it will pick up the gas
It'll
smell.
pick up the propane because it goes on the ground. It doesn't, propane hangs on the ground, it doesn't go up.
Yeah.
So I never knew that either.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I unless you're falling down on the floor, you want to smell it.
Yeah.
Well, I have propane, I don't even have a detector, so now I'm wondering, like, should I get a detector
Probably.
for safety?
Yeah.
As far as leaks, it's good.
Yeah, you can get on.
Yeah, you can as well.
I can motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
I'm assuming everybody's looking for that. Okay. Hi, Gary, thanks for joining us. No, they were supposed to.
But he went down to the exposed.
Yes, she wanted to leave earlier today. He was going to say earlier.